I'm Darby Allen, first grade teacher at A.L. Watts Elementary School and math demonstration teacher for Knox County Schools. Today, we're going to work on understanding and applying properties of operations and relationships between addition and subtraction. Let's get started. Some important vocabulary that you need to know for today's review. Add in, that is a number being added. 2 plus 1 equals 3. 2 and 1 are our add-ins. Total, that is a number found as the result of adding. So in 2 plus 3 equals 5. 5 is our total, or also our whole. In our number bond, the big circle either at the top or the side is the whole or the total. And then the two smaller circles are our parts. In this case, it's 2 and 3. Make a 10. That is a strategy that uses combinations of numbers that add to 10 when finding totals greater than 10, such as 1 and 9, 2 and 8, 3 and 7, 4 and 6, or 5 and 5. A teen number, that is a 10 and some number of ones from 1 to 9. The numbers 11 through 19 are considered teen numbers. Let's look at example A from the packet. Our job in this first example is to decide which number bond shows 6 minus 5. We've got to look at the parts and circle. So if you notice in this first number bond, 6 is our whole, and then our two parts are 4 and 2. If you look at the second number bond, you can see that our whole is 6 and our parts are 5 and 1. Remember, we're looking at the subtraction sentence, 6 minus 5. That is where we're going to find out what our whole is and what is the part that we know. We're going to fill in a blank number bond to help us organize our thoughts. That's what we do in my classroom. So we know that 6, since it's before the subtraction sign in the number sentence, is the whole. So we can go ahead and fill that in the top of our number bond. We have been given one part. So this is the part we know. It is 5. So we can go ahead and fill in that part of our number bond. Now, I'm going to use some counters to help me figure out what my missing part is. So I have used red counters to show the 5 from my number bond, which is the part I know. You can count the red counters, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now I need to see what my missing part is. I have got to count on to get to the number 6, which is my whole. So I can count on one more counter, which shows me that my missing part is 1. And that helps me get to my whole that is 6. Now that I've been able to fill in my blank number bond and organize my thoughts and use counters, I know now that the correct number bond is the one with 6 as the whole and the 5 and the 1 as the parts. So I can circle that number bond and I have answered that question. Now that I've found the number bond that matches my subtraction sentence, I'm going to work on writing an addition sentence that helps me find 6 minus 5. Since this is an addition sentence, I know that my whole is going to go on one side of the equal sign by myself. So I can fill in the 6 on the side of the equal sign by itself since that is the whole. Now I can fill in my parts or my add-ins for 5 and 1. I can put these in any order. In the addition sentence, what matters is where my whole goes, as long as it's on the side of the equal sign by itself. My parts can go in any order. Now I've been able to write an addition sentence that helps me find 6 minus 5. It can be 6 equals 5 plus 1 or 6 equals 1 plus 5. Great job! Now we're going to move on to example B. We're going to use the same steps as we used in example A. This time our numbers are different. Our job is to find which number bond shows 5 minus 2. If you look in the first number bond, we have 5 as our whole and 2 and 3 as our parts. The second number bond shows 5 as our whole and 1 and 4 as our parts. In this example, our subtraction sentence is 5 minus 2. We're going to organize our thoughts again in a blank number bond. We know that in the subtraction sentence 5 minus 2, since 5 comes before the subtraction sign, that is our whole. So we're going to put 5 in the position of the whole in our number bond. We know that since 2 comes after the subtraction sign in the subtraction sentence, it is the part we know. So we can fill that in the part spot on our number bond. We're going to use counters again to help us solve and find out what our missing part is. Since 2 is the part we know, we're going to use our 2 red counters to show that the part we know is 2. We know since our whole is 5, we can count on from 2 to 5, and we are going to represent that with yellow counters. So you can see that we have 3 yellow counters. We can count all of the counters together and see that 5 is our whole. So this confirms that 3, the missing part, is correct. We can now go back to our original question where it asked which number bond shows 5 minus 2. We can compare the empty number bond that we filled in and find the correct number bond. We know that 5 is the whole and 2 and 3 are our parts. Just like we did in example A, we're going to write an addition sentence that helps us find 5 minus 2. We know that 5 is our whole, so since this is an addition sentence, it's going to go on the side of the equal sign by itself. Now that we have our whole in its place, we can fill in our parts. These can go in any order. We can actually fill them in and then flip them around too. As long as our whole stays on the side of the addition sentence by itself, our parts can go any place. Great job on this example. Now we're ready for example C. What we reviewed in examples A and B is going to help us as we solve example C. Our job here is to write a subtraction sentence and write an addition sentence. We're going to use the numbers in our number bond to fill in the blanks in our subtraction and addition sentence. These are the only numbers that we're going to use. As we've reviewed before, 7 in this number bond is our whole, and 6 and 1 are the parts that we are going to use. I have highlighted our whole, the number 7, in blue, and I have highlighted and labeled our parts, 6 and 1, in green, so that we can see this more clearly. We are going to start with the subtraction sentence. In a subtraction sentence, it is important that you always put the whole, in this case 7, before the subtraction sign. Next, we're going to fill in the parts in our subtraction sentence. I have colored that in green to help us be able to see that more clearly. I have filled in the 6. Remember, you can only use the numbers that are provided in the number bond. Now, I'm going to finish filling in my subtraction sentence with the last part, which is the number 1, also shaded in green. Remember, I can only use the parts and whole from the number bond. Now I'm going to complete my addition sentence. 7 is my whole, so it goes on the side of the equal sign by itself. Now I'm going to fill in my parts for my addition sentence. I'm going to use the parts 6 and 1 because those are the numbers provided in my number bond. It does not matter in what order my parts go into the addition sentence, as long as my 7 is on the side of the equal sign by itself, since it is the whole. Now we can see how I wrote a subtraction sentence and an addition sentence using the numbers provided in the number bond. I have 7 minus 6 equals 1, and 6 plus 1 equals 7. You can also move the parts around in your subtraction sentence. As long as your whole is before the subtraction sign, then the parts may go any other place in the subtraction sentence. But remember, we've got to use all the numbers that are in that number bond. I have also shown how I can write the commutative property, or like what we call it in my classroom, the flip-flop facts for the addition sentences. As long as the whole is on the side of the equal sign by itself, it doesn't matter the order that your parts are in. Great job on example C. Now it's time for example D. Our job for example D is to find 15 minus 7. We are going to use 10 frames to solve this. Remember that since 15 is a team number, a 10 and some ones, we are going to have to use more than one 10 frame. Think about some strategies that you could use to help you subtract. Notice with the 10 frames here, we could think about using a 10 to subtract. Remember, the number before the subtraction sign is our whole. So 15 is our whole. So that's the number that we need to start with. Since we remembered that 15 is our whole, I'm going to go ahead and I have filled in 15 counters to show 15 being our whole. Remember, if I fill up one whole 10 frame, that's 10, and then I have 5 more. That also shows that that is a team number. It is important to understand that the part we know and the part that we're taking away is 7. I've colored 7 of our counters yellow to show that we are taking away 7 from 15. Now that I've shown that I have 15 counters total, and I have shaded 7 of them yellow to show that I'm taking away 7 counters, I need to show how I could make a 10. Remember, we've got 2 10 frames. So how many counters do I need to take away to show that I have a 10, to make a 10? That's right. I can take away 5 counters, and then I have a 10. Just like 15 minus 5 is equal to 10. Now, how many more counters do I need to take away? I've taken away 5, but my subtraction sentence says 15 minus 7, and I've only taken away 5 so far. Great job, that's right. I need to take away 2 more counters. I took away 5, and I needed to take away 7, so I took 2 more counters away because 2 and 5 equals 7. So I have taken away 2 more counters. Now, how many counters are left? Great job. I have 8 counters left. Remember, we started with 15 counters total because 15 was our whole. We took away 7 in all, and now there are 8 left. Now, let's walk through each of the steps and write a subtraction sentence. Our job during this example was to find 15 minus 7. You can see that I have 15 counters, 7 of them shaded yellow because that is the part that I'm taking away. My next step was to take away 5 counters because I was making a 10 to subtract. So I took away 5 counters so that I could have 10 remaining. Now I can show that in my subtraction sentence. 15 minus 5 equals 10, but I'm not finished yet. Remember, I was supposed to take away 7 total. I've taken away 5 to make 10. Now I still need to take away 2 more counters. After I took away the 2 more counters, I now have my missing part, which is 8. I can also go ahead and fill that in at the top because I now know that 15 minus 7 equals 8. Great job! Now it's time for example E. Our job for example E today is to find 14 minus 8. We're going to talk about how 14 minus 8 is the same as 8 plus blank equals 14. In my classroom, we use a number bond to help us organize our thoughts so we can remember what is the whole and what are the parts. We know that in the subtraction sentence 14 minus 8, since 14 comes before the subtraction sign, that is the whole. So we can put that in the whole place in the number bond. We also know that in the subtraction sentence 14 minus 8, since 8 comes after the subtraction sign, that is the part that we know. So we can fill that in our number bond as well. Now we have our number bond filled out with as much information as we have right now. Our whole, which is 14, and 8, which is the part we know. Now we've got to find that missing part. Now that we've organized our thoughts with our number bond, we can move on to using the strategy of 10 frames to solve. Remember, since 14 is a team number, a 10 and some ones, we're going to have to use more than one 10 frame. Remember that you can use what you know about addition to help you subtract. So like we said, 8 is the part we know. So we can go ahead and fill in those 8 counters into our 10 frame. Remember, we're using what we know about addition to help us subtract. So since 8 was our part, we're going to go ahead and count on to 10 to complete that 10 frame, which is going to help us subtract. So I've added 2 yellow counters to show 8, 9, 10. Now I'm not finished. I've used the 2 yellow counters to count on to 10. But remember, my whole is 14. So I need 4 more counters to help me get to that whole of 14. So I'm going to move 4 yellow counters into the 10 frame. 11, 12, 13, 14. Now I have 14 counters total in my 10 frames, which is the same number as my whole, 14. Now I can count my yellow counters that I have added to my 10 frames to find out what that missing part is. I started with the 8, and now let's count the yellow counters. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Great job! We found out that our missing part is 6. Now we can finish filling in that number bond that we started with. We know that 14 is our whole. We filled in the 8 counters, and then we added 6 more yellow counters. So now we know that missing part was 6. Just like we did in example D, we're going to go step by step and show the subtraction sentences that go with this problem. We started out with 8 counters because that was the part that we knew. Then we used the strategy of addition to help us count on to 10 to help us solve. Since we added 2 yellow counters to make 10, we're going to represent that in our addition sentence. So we have 8 plus 2 equals 10. But remember, we're not done yet. We still needed to get to our whole of 14. So we needed to add 4 more counters to represent 14 as our whole. So we added 4 yellow counters. I can now complete my addition sentence to show that 10 plus 4 equals 14. So now I have my whole. Remember, I'm using addition to subtract. So I started with 8 counters and I needed to get to 14. So I added 6 counters to my 10 frames to make 14. I can now represent that in my addition sentence and can also complete my subtraction sentence of 14 minus 8 equals 6. Great job! I've loved reviewing with you today. I hope you have a safe and healthy summer. Have a great day.